How do we decide what priorities to focus on? How do we decide what to whittle out and what to cut down?
Warren Buffett, one of the most famous investors of our time, he adheres to a concept that I'll call the 25-5 rule. And this story comes from a man named Mike Flint, who was Warren Buffett's private pilot. Mike Flint has flown multiple US presidents. He's also the pilot for Warren Buffett. So he's had a very successful career. And he came to Warren Buffett one day and he said, "Warren, I would like to fly this particular type of plane. I think whenever we upgrade, we should get this new one." And he said, "Mike, if you're working for me in 10 years when we buy a new plane, then I probably have failed you as a boss. So here's what I'd like you to do. And this exercise that I'm about to share, you can do on any level. You can do it for your career. You can do it for the things that you or your team need to get done this month. You can do it for the things that you need to work on today or this week." And he said, "I'd like you to take the 25 things that you want to achieve in your career and write them down on a list." So Mike Flint goes away, writes down his 25 things. He gets done and he says, "All right, great. I want you to circle the top 5 things on that list." So he spends some more time. He circles the top 5 priorities. He says, "All right, tell me what your strategy is at this point." And Mike Flint said, "Well, I have my top 5 things, so I'm going to work on those first." And he said, "Great. What about the other things on your list?" He said, "Well, those will be the things I do on nights or weekends or when I get tired or bored or, a project stalls. I'll work on that." And Warren Buffett said, "Mike, you got it all wrong. The things that you have circled are your priorities. The other items on your list, number 6 through 25, this is your never do under any circumstance list. And the reason is because it's so easy for us to rationalize spending time on things that are good uses of time but not great uses of time. It's items that 6 through 25 on your list that take up time and space and energy because we can justify why we need to do them. They're on the list for a reason. They just don't happen to be the best uses of our time. And so I would encourage you to take that exercise and think about how you can apply it to the work that you're doing or the professional or personal priorities that you have. The key idea here is your brain only has so much capacity to provide. Your willpower is like a muscle, and similar to muscles, it gets fatigued. So we need to understand this about ourselves and about the people on our teams if we want to stick to good habits and build consistent systems in the long run. The way that I would describe it is that we often assume that as humans, we are like a tree, and we can grow wider and taller and bigger, and we have infinite energy to give to things. We take on more projects, we take on more priorities, we take on more responsibilities. But in fact, we're much more like a rose bush. A rose bush is relatively confined in its shape and size. It's not that big, and it can't grow wider and taller. And in order for a rose bush to fully blossom, for a few of the flowers to actually bloom to their full potential and flourish, you have to trim away many of the buds. And so by trimming away good ideas, you make room for the great ideas to flourish. We're much more like a rose bush than we are like a tree.
That means you have to cut away buds that could blossom into something. They could become a full-grown flower. They could look good. So these are good ideas that you have to clip away, but you have to prune those out of your life if you want to truly be great, if you want to focus on flourishing to the biggest degree. So pruning away these ideas and using Buffett's strategy of this 25-5 rule is one way to cut out the things that are in your life that are distracting you from greatness.